welcome to you all to our Terra Confluence 2024 series, which is a Earth Day events celebration from Global Climate Association. And today in our dialogue series, the Terra Torrent, we have here with us is Anando Mukherjee. So let me give you a brief outline of his life and work. So we are honored to welcome Anando Mukherjee, who is a distinguished advocate on record at the Supreme Court of India, to our Terra Torrent Dialogue series, a crucial part of the Terra Confluence 2024 event that we are hosting. His legal career spans over 15 years in litigation and corporate legal advisory. As the founding partner of Singh and Mukherjee Chambers in New Delhi and director of Singh and Mukherjee Legal Consultants, UAE, Anando brings a unique and valuable perspective to our discussions. He currently serves as the standing counsel of State of Mizoram, India, often referred to as the land of the Blue Mountains. Mizoram has the highest percentage area of forest at about 90.68% and also has a significant tiger population among other biodiversity. Mizoram is the homeland of the ethnic indigenous Mizo tribes, with 95% of the state having tribal population. So Ananda, through his expertise, though Ananda's expertise lies outside our typical environmental focus, his perspective is particularly significant in understanding how legal frameworks can be leveraged for effective environmental protection and climate action at both national and global levels, especially now today in the current era of global boiling. So join us as Anando sheds light on the dynamic interplay between law, policy, and environmental sustainability, highlighting the crucial role of legal systems in advancing our collective goals towards climate and environmental action. Thank you so much, Anando, for joining us today. And now I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can have our conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Paulamy, for having me here. I could not have given a better introduction probably for myself. So thank you for your warm words. And yes, whatever little experience I have had in the field of environment law protection in the country, I'll try and share as much input as I can from my experience and from whatever I've come across being an advocate on record in the Supreme Court.
We are honored to have you here. So, moving on towards the discussion that we had earlier planned on having about
Yes.
national environmental legislation. So,
Mhm.
how effective have India's environmental laws been in addressing current ecological challenges, and what improvements could be made? Could you shed some light on that thought?
See, I personally feel that there's no dearth of legislations available in our country. So, if you see both the central as well as state legislations, there are more than 200 legislations that are in place at present, which includes not only the statutes but the rules that are framed thereunder for an effective resolution of the environmental protection laws in India. However, the major difficulty or the major challenge that our country today faces is the effective implementation of these legislations. So I would say that there's an urgent need for effective, successful, and well organized enforcement of not only the constitutional mandate, because our constitution in itself, pursuant to the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, constitution has incorporated two articles, which is Article 48A, which obliges each state, or which puts an obligation on the state to not only protect the environment but also improve the environment. So the obligation is both protection and improvement. which is a part of sustainable development, as we call in environmental law. And so this is a obligation cast on the state, and by virtue of Article 51 AG, there's a duty cast on each and every citizen of the country for protection and improvement of environment, including wildlife and forests. So uh, in this background, if you see, we have an effective legislation so far as the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act is concerned. Then there's an Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act. Under both these acts, there is a central pollution control board. There's a state pollution control board. Apart from this, there's Environment Protection Act. There's a National Environment Tribunal Act to manage or to effectively deal with the claims of compensation resulting from environmental accidents. There's Wildlife Protection Acts. There's Forest Conservation Act. So all these legislations are there. The problem becomes that our country, being a country uh, with so much population, the mechanism to deal at each and every point probably is missing. So if you see, so far as uh, the judicial activism is concerned, Supreme Court has played a very important role in judicial activism. Uh, but all these implementation factor comes only when some environmentalist comes before the court by way of a PIL to enforce certain rights. But people at the grassroots level, they are not so much
Aware of
aware of about the uh,
issues.
damage that they do to the environment, or their actions may be doing to them. So what our country really needs is basic education at the grassroots level. Then the implementation has to start from the grassroots. Today we have NGT in different region, which is at the national level, but we don't have anything at the state level. We don't have anything at the district level. So until and unless we start from the district level, then go to the state level, then go to the national level, it becomes very difficult to actually implement and enforce these particular laws.
That is true. What you are saying is that we require a bottoms-up approach in this scenario where the people are aware, made aware, and not just the local people or local communities. It should be like industries and it should be implemented in all levels of the society where the even though the law exists, the follow through are not present, especially in case of air pollution. Like India is one of the most polluted cities in the world, and
True.
uh, and that is true for many different cases. So what you are saying is we need it to be implemented. The legislations are present, but the implementations need to be done in a more educational perspective. So now
True,
move.
and I also feel here. Sorry to interject. I also feel here that we have too many legislations, and obviously that has happened because as time has progressed and we have felt need. There have been various conferences, international conferences, through which we as a country have gained knowledge about certain things, and thus the legislations have been framed. But it's too many legislation. We need a comprehensive code. If all these legislation can be brought into one comprehensive code, or let's say two comprehensive codes, then that will also solve a lot of problems, so to say, in understanding the challenges itself. Because for for a professional, it may be for a professional like me, it may be okay to read, understand, and interpret these legislations. But when it comes to common people, they will not be going through all these legislations one by one, right? So So what we need is a comprehensive legislation which which is inclusive of all these legislation and make it less complicated and simpler for understanding of the common people.
And probably a separate body on all levels of districts and states other than the under probably the NGT where the implementation can take place, and then there will would be specific cases only in relation to environment and climate and probably sustainability.
Yes,
So
in fact, the Law Commission of India had suggested for setting up of environment courts in all states. Uh, that has not been implemented yet, and I think implementation of that part of the report of the Law Commission would be a great welcome change in the entire structure of implementation and of the environmental laws in India.
and that would lead the way. India would be a leader in showing the other nations of the world, because this is pollution and climate and environment is not something just inside a boundary, it's a transboundary subject. And
Correct.
that would be a great initiative on India's part if this implementation comes through. So
Right.
now moving on, if you could tell me something about the related to the climate change policies. So, what are the key aspects of India's climate change policies, and how do they align with global climate goals? Focusing especially on the decision by Supreme Court of India, that was a recent decision where they named freedom from adverse impact of climate change as a fundamental right. So I would like you to expand that perspective. What does that mean to our for our general audience?
So you see, India's policies on environment in general and climate change in to be specific has always been out of its commitments through international treaties.
Hmm.
All the legislations that we see today are an outcome of the international treaties that India has entered into and is part of. Now, climate change is something that is affecting the entire globe,
Yes.
and India is committed in its movement to implement the Paris Agreement
Hmm.
and to you know to really give effect to the commitments under the agreement. Now, India have taken certain positive steps, which I would say can be divided into five parts. The first being the plastic waste management, the second being the electronic waste management, the third being the hazardous waste management, fourth being forest conservation, and the fifth being your green hydrogen policy. So, if you look at the first plastic waste management, so India has amended its rules in 2022. The aim is to strengthen the circular economy of plastic packaging waste, which depends on reuse, sharing, repair, refurbishment, recycling of resources to create a closed loop system. It mandates the generators of plastic waste to take steps to minimize generation of plastic waste, preventing littering of plastic waste, and ensure segregated storage of the said waste, among other measures. Now, the rule also mandates the local bodies like gram panchayats, etc., the waste generators, the retailers, the street vendors to manage plastic waste. So, under the rule, uh, they have brought in the concept of extended producer responsibility, which is also known as EPR, with an objective that the environmental compensation is to be levied on the entity which errs. So, with this objective of better plastic waste management, in India has resolved that they will implement this better plastic waste management in around 100 cities by the end of 2024. So this is the first step which I would say. Just give me 1 second. I have to put my laptop on charge. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I understand a lot of steps that have been taken in terms of rules and regulation per se, that the ones you have stated. But the implementation is something that is people are wary of and people are questioning whether we are doing that or not. Especially one of our other speakers recently told me about this, the climate thing coming out, the climate um, policy by India has been launched and people are very excited about it. But how much of positive news is it for us who are actually working in this field, and will that make a difference? So,
So, so see, at least I would say that there is a policy in place now, which
hmm,
was not there earlier. Yes, effective implementation is definitely a big question mark. Uh, and I would say that governments, the central government as well as the state governments, have a mandate and are working towards it to create the background and the mechanism for effectively dealing with such effective implementation of the policies. But the big thing is that until now, these policies were not there. You would see throughout the length and breadth of the country rampant use of plastic bags, which are banned now, and at least a certain section of the society is
are
following
using,
the ban.
yeah, I'm
Yes,
aware
and
paper
use yes, and using alternatives. So that ways, of course, there has been a start. Now, so far as the electronic waste is concerned, the I would say the effort of the government has been laudable. Uh, you would be surprised that in the year 2019-2020, around 1 million tons of e-waste was generated and only 22.7% was properly disposed of. So disposal of e-waste is something that the government is looking at very seriously, and from 2019 to 2024, that statistics has improved a bit. There has been a substantial improvement, in fact, in disposal of electronic waste. Now, the third aspect is the hazardous waste, where hazardous and other waste management and transboundary movement rules was incorporated way back in 2016. But we see an effective, I won't say effective, but we see progress in implementation of the said rule, which actually provides for a very comprehensive regulatory framework for management of hazardous waste. So yes, I would say that there again there exists all the laws in place. There exists the implementation model, but yes, to create the mechanism out of the set model, it may take some more time. Now, in what I would think is uh, a step backward has been taken so far as forest conservation is concerned.
hmm,
That is an area which which is really contentious now. The government has had come with a forest conservation amendment bill in 2023. Now, as you know, the definition of forest was really expanded by the Supreme Court in the case of T.N. Godavarman. So, in that judgment, the Supreme Court expanded the application of the Forest Conservation Act from notified forests to all land parcels that were either recorded as forests or resembled forests, where forests were defined as any piece of land resembling the dictionary meaning of forest. So this was a very wide scope of categorizing what a forest is, you know. So according to me, this bill, the amendment bill of 2023, this takes a backward steps in so much so that it tries to, you know, uh, limit the application of this judgment, or it takes it limits the scope which this judgment had earlier given only to notified or uh, reserved forests.
Mm.
Now, why this bill was brought into force? This bill was brought into force to, in light of the new challenges, sorry, relating to ecological, social, and environmental development,
Mm.
mitigating the impact of climate change, achieving the national target of, net zero emissions by 2070, which is, which is the national target now. That is by 2020, there has to be a net zero emission, and maintaining the forest carbon stocks. But contrary to the object of the bill, what the bill actually seeks to do is, in the name of security and national interest, it gives central government wide powers to, do activities which are non-forest activities in forest land, especially in those states which are border surrounding states like the northeast eastern states. So I would
Actually,
say that
yeah, I
yes,
would like to quickly weigh in something here. So, what you
yes.
are saying is that due to this rapid population that we are having, that was one of our next question that we wanted to deal with, and the development that is necessary. And we have like a 1.4 billion population in our country right now. So, to manage that, these laws have come into force where we have took away something from the actual law that was existing and paved way for more development. Development in the sense of, say, creating more infrastructure for our population and reducing ecologically sensitive areas and biodiversity. But will this create a problem in the future? And is there a way, maybe through some way through using law as a uh, you can say a tool in this case to integrate the biodiversity and infrastructure development together. So can that be done some way? Because nowadays we are recognizing the need to have a good climate, need to have a good environment for our survival, because the cost of that is going to be so much more. So do you think laws and legislation can some way support the researchers and people who are working in the field of environment and climate to bridge that gap, that so that development can occur along with the biodiversity staying put?
So, to answer this, the entire concept of environment protection when it came into India post the Stockholm Declaration was to include a strategy balancing development and sustainability, right? Uh, so much so that when the Indian Constitution incorporated Article 48A, so like I pointed out that Article 48A talks about not only protection but also improvement, right? So that by itself, in there's a inherent concept of sustainable development
Mm.
that has come uh, in in the constitutional mandate and the laws that are framed under the by virtue of the said provisions. So the concept of sustainable development uh, you know is something that every government, be it the state government or be it the central government, has to keep in mind, uh, while framing any laws that relates to environment. And this incorporates what you call the intergenerational equity. So you have to use the environment in a manner uh, that that it satisfies your need, but it does not deplete the right of your future generation, right?
True.
So that is something which is intergenerational equity. This concept has been widely uh, accepted and elaborated by the Supreme Court of India. Then these legislation incorporates the uh, uh, what you call the precautionary principle, that any step that you take, if you are an industry, if you are a factory, if you have to adhere to uh, to standards which are precautionary in nature, in the sense that if, say, you are emitting abcd gases, right, into the environment. Now, what are the precautionary steps you can take for maintaining the least emission? And if you emit something more than it, what are the uh, what do you say, um, what you propose to do to compensate for that particular violation. So these are certain principles that are in the very nature, or is the backbone of each and every legislation that relates to environment protection and conservation. So again, I would say that all these concepts of sustainable development, etc., are there. Now, these will be better implemented, I would say, by twofold actions. First, there has to be a political will, right? The our government have to, and uh, our government will have to take steps to understand what kind of development they want to achieve, what is the minimum requirement of development that a country should have, and development, and at what cost, you know whether that can be compensated in terms of money, whether it can be compensated in any other terms. So we have this concept in our laws that you pay something what is called as the environment compensation, right? So that is an amount. But there are also concepts where, for deforestation you have to plant so many number of trees, etc. So those are compensatory in nature. So therefore, this is really for something for the government to
Implement.
actually implement, because the concept has been well elaborated by the Indian judiciary.
On that, I would like to also add that there's something the governments of, especially in case of India, per se, they are doing is that there are schemes known as clean and green villages, in which they are dealing with all aspects, the things that you said about pollution, about climate, about the waste, about proper water management in areas, drought-prone areas. So the laws and structures and missions, and there's also this national missions on climate change. Each state has
True.
their own climate action plan for the years 2030, sorry. So each
Yeah.
state has been mandated to do that. So the
Correct.
plans are all in place for us. The thing is the motion, maybe more involvement with experts on and scientists in different levels of the implementation might make it more effective, because we see the laws and the missions and the framework already in place. There is some framework that we are currently working on with other groups of people, like on an international collaboration, that is climate repair plan. So we
Mhm.
want to put this in front of the government of India and other governments on a scale, on a global scale as well, where we are
Yeah.
proposing to not just to have plans. Again, if there's a problem, we need to repair the climate, repair the environment. So we are
Right.
working on that. It's like there are a bunch of people all over the world who's working on that, and we hope that might be something that is helpful, especially in cases that of a place that have a lot of population. They are especially prone to climate disasters and issues related to environment. Now,
Right.
moving on, you have already talked about the major challenges and
in
uh,
in
that
this if I may only supplement that if you see the step of the government by way of implementation of the green hydrogen policy, I think that is something which is very laudable. So to say that the Ministry of Power announced the green hydrogen policy in the year 2022 for ease of production of green hydrogen, right? So the it provides for an additional incentive such as, waiver of interstate electricity transmission charges, the priority electrical connectivity, land allocation in renewable energy parks, establishment of dedicated manufacturing zones for green hydrogen. And to implement this, there's a Energy Conservation Amendment Act which is in place, which places a minimum consumption obligation on the consumers. Further promoting non-fossil fuel sources. So these are certain steps that have definitely been taken, uh, and the results will take some time to be seen. But yes, these are certain positive steps, at least in this direction.
especially in case of renewable energy, India has a mandate to have a certain level of emissions or certain
Correct.
level of energy transition to renewable energy by 2030, which I think most of the goal has already been met by India, which was a huge
Correct.
positive that was lauded by globally for that contribution by India. And we are hoping that not just development will take place, but yes, ecological restoration hand in hand with the development purposes.
True.
Now moving on, which is I think we already discussed it, but some I would still like your views on this. That how significant is public participation in environmental decision making, and how can it be enhanced within the legal framework? If you have your some views on this.
So, by public participation, what exactly do you mean?
So, environmental decision making, if you know, there are industries where there's already,
Mhm.
for a starting of a industry or a company, the landowners, the local natives are, the stakeholders are called and they're involved in the decision making, whether do they
Mhm.
have any views on that. So, do you think that the idea from there, from environment impact assessment or management plan for the industry setup, can be taken up into a legal framework as well? Before, like India has a lot of rules, so does globally, so a lot of rules and framework coming in.
Mhm.
Do you
Mhm.
think that the views or the any ideas from public can be incorporated in the legal framework or in the legal amendments that are made to the laws? And will that be
See,
helpful?
I would say that public participation is already there in the legal framework,
Mm.
because for creating or for implementing any, say, project decision, or to make any uh, policy, set up industries, etc. You have to have public participation involved in it. You have to publish notification inviting objections from public and things like that. So there is public participation in the legal framework already, but I would say that, you know again, there are loopholes, and the biggest loophole being public interest. So in the name of public interest, governments generally do away with public participation. Mm, uh, because in the Indian legal framework, in the name of public interest, you may do away with the objections of people and compensate them, for their lands, uh, like for example land acquisition, right, for setting up of industry. If you say that the industry is required in public interest, you can do away with you know the public participation uh, angle of it. For example, you have to give a notice to the landowners, invite objections, but these again become very, very, uh, so to say, very, very, uh,
Difficult
you
to
know,
manage.
it's, I mean, it's on the paper.
Hmm.
It's a formality you do by publishing a notification, but do
Not
you
follow.
really take into account the suggestions of the people? Do you really take into account the objection of the people? Is something which is again, controversial and is a you know is an area which has to be looked into.
Hmm. That is
Now,
in.
now if you see. Uh, during environmental scrutiny, say of a new project or an expansion, before a project commences, it has to obtain certain clearances, right? Now, out of these clearances, only a few, mandate public consultation. Now, in case of environmental impact appraisal, uh, public consultations and hearings are an important avenue, to for the people to raise concerns, but this rarely have an impact on the project's fate. Uh, Effective public hearing, to my understanding, remains a perfunctory exercise, till date. And so it is very important uh, for you know for the local administration, so to say, like the Gram Sabha, the village assembly, they have to, take more proactive steps in asserting the rights of their individuals, uh, in getting a better deal from the government, maybe.
That is a good idea. That is actually something that if village heads or if community heads from each group, they stand up and they do that. This has already happened when people together have come to for a environmental initiatives such as Chipko movement, or also in this
Correct.
case of this climate policy that it was recently done. It came through because of a case on in Great Indian Bustard. That was a conservation issue which was very different, but a climate policy came through. So I think the voices can be heard, and now in the day of media being so open and uh, honest and cosmopolitan, I think this there's a way that issues will be more open and people and laws and legislations can be changed or made amended based on
True.
the people's opinion. Now, as we are like short of time, I'll move on towards the last couple of questions that I have for you.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, what do you see as the future of law, environmental law, both in India and globally, in
Mhm.
addressing emerging ecological crisis? Does India stand out, or does it have a
So
way?
see, uh, to understand the future, we have to understand, what role the judiciary has played in interpreting the laws. Like you rightly pointed out in a recent judgment, the Supreme Court in the judgment of M.K. Ranjit Singh, uh, it has taken a way forward. Like earlier, right to a clean environment, right to breathe fresh air, right to clean water. These were made part of fundamental right through judicial interventions, right? Because it was interpreted, so to say, that these are part of right to life. Now, with this judgment, which is, I think, which has come in April, Mm, the Supreme Court has clearly said that uh, there's a right to remain free from the adverse impact of climate change. This takes a way forward uh, to include this in your right to life. Now, what this will actually do is give right to the people to directly challenge any government action
Mm.
or any individual action which say has a direct impact on climate change, which again was not possible till this judgment came, right? Because
True.
you see, India is a country with diverse, culture.
Mm.
Now, we celebrate festivals like Diwali. We burst crackers that has its own impact. But what were the rights, before this judgment? I mean, if say say certain action has a repercussion on on a field like or on an impact on the climate as a whole, you know, then uh, then it becomes that much more important for the judiciary to make sure that every individual lives in a place which is free from such adverse impacts on the climate, right? So judiciary has played a very important role in interpreting these these concepts and brought in various things within the field of fundamental right, which strengthens the the hands of the public at large. Now coming back to your question as to what is the future, so I think you have to make a and these kind of interpretations are actually an indication that we are already making a paradigm shift towards a more ecocentric jurisprudence, right? As opposed to what you call an anthropocentric
Mm.
jurisprudence, right? So this like the interpretation like now in TN Godavarman, uh, we have essentially drifted away from the principle of anthropocentric to ecocentric. How this judgment gives legal personhood to nature itself, right? So such kind of interpretation where uh, you call a river like Ganga, or you call a forest, or you call an ecosystem in general a legal person, and that legal person, because with legal personhood there are certain rights, so these natural resources also have their own right. So these kind of interpretations made by the court in India have been a very positive step, and I think such kind of interpretation will give a big boost to the future of environmental law in India.
That is actually a lovely way to say it also and to mean it, because this is what our culture, not just in India, globally, people where, especially indigenous cultures and people who are natives to certain regions, they believe nature ha has its own living system, forest, and everyone associated with it have their own life, and it's not just us. So the point that you make, the shift from anthropogenic ideas and systems to a more ecocentric
Yeah,
regime
I
of
mean,
we
so basically
will be
so
very
basically you have to so basically see, the earlier understanding was why you valued nature, because you used to get certain benefits out of it, right? The benefits may be material, the benefits may be
food, stable
uh,
medicine, all our life things are for our livelihood.
yes. So ecocentric way of looking at it would be to value the nature for what it is, instead of trying to derive benefit out of it. You value it as a system for what it is. Your existence is dependent on it, right? So you have to view it in that manner, and probably that has been the biggest shift in the way the courts have started interpreting uh, interpreting various actions of industries, various actions of uh, projects given to, or given to various industrialists. So, so what I mean to say is that that shift has occurred so far as the judiciary is concerned, but this shift really is necessitated in in the administration as well. And the administration, how it can be done. So, see, judiciary have always taken. So there are 200, like I said, there are around 200 or more than 200 laws. In spite of them, there remains, loopholes and gaps in the system. So the Indian Supreme Court has tried its level best to fill in those gaps by way of, uh, giving guidelines in its judgment till the time and a legislation is brought to address that. Till that time, they have given the guidelines, and the system works with those guidelines. So now it is for the government to consider those guidelines and frame appropriate laws to fill in that gap. It is for the governments uh, to now give implementation to the kind of interpretation that has been made by the court in in framing future laws and the penalties. So I think uh, it's high time uh, that the penalties are revised to act as a deterrent to every industry or every every individual or every entity which which
Are flouting the
kind of
law.
which are flouting the laws. For example, you see, it's a very controversial subject, but again, this like I live in Delhi. Uh, I'm surrounded by borders of Haryana and UP. Now, these are agricultural areas where there are crop burnings happening, right? Now, my rights as a citizen in the country for the pollution caused by crop burning, so it's a highly debatable topic because farmers have their own rights. How they dispose of the crop. They say that they don't have an alternate effective way of disposing of crop. So the government needs to sit with the stakeholders and devise a strategy where an effective and alternate solutions can be given. By considering the problems that are faced by these farmers, but in no way this can give right to the farmers to burn crops so as to affect the uh, environment of its neighboring areas, right? So these are certain things which I feel that a more proactive action has to be taken by the government, and if necessary, strict penalties should be in place.
So, what you say is like wonderful that we need to have a ecocentric approach, and to main thing is to have a man of law and litigation say those words. Like that is like a most positive boost for people who like us who are working with environment and climate and ecology. That because most people are not aware of this. Awareness is the first step towards change. Second thing is what you're saying is what we need to have done is to look into different rights of people, so and have structures and maybe improvement in technologies, so people can, like farmers can dispose them without having any loss in um their earnings, and we can also breathe. So I think dialogues such as these maybe might be pave a way to have some structure in place in the future, so that we might have some change. And our last question is very sort of a, means like it is not on a global level, but and this is like very quickly in few short sentences. I would like to know that, do lawyers in Supreme Court or High Courts or independent firms such as yours have access to, courses or workshops to stay informed about environmental and climate challenges and actual cases? And if not, would you consider taking the initiative to arrange for, experts and, discourses, dialogues, workshops in your to brief legal professional on these issues and potential strategies to address them? What would be your thought beyond this?
Well, yes. See, so environmental law as a course has been incorporated by the bar council in the law courses, obviously. Uh, Apart from that, we have a system, where we have seminars organized by the bar association, the AOR association, by various NGOs, where uh, in different topics we bring in experts, and not only environment, in different fields including environment. So yes, we do have a system in place uh, where the lawyers are educated even further by the experts in relation to environmental laws and other laws as well. So yes, I mean, this is something which is already going on, and if you need any help which I can do, I'll be most glad to contribute.
That is great to know, because there's, as issues related to environment and climate is seeping in into cases that might not be even relevant for I mean, like that might be something totally different case, but there is a issue regarding environment. So we need the lawyers who are standing and speaking for the environment or the climate to have the knowledge. So yes, we are always open for collaboration, and I'm pretty sure most of our viewers would have this gain this a lot of knowledge by the information that you shared today. And we are really happy at the Global Climate Association to have you today with us. So thank you so much, Anando, and we look forward to working with likes of you and other government officials in for our common goal of creating a planet which is more sustainable, safer, and environmental friendly. Thank you so much, Aaron.